My phone buzzes on the kitchen counter while I'm elbow-deep in packing tape and cardboard boxes. It's been exactly 48 hours since I moved into this apartment, and I'm still surrounded by the chaos of relocation. When I see Gregory Hartman's name on the screen, my first thought is that something's wrong with the plumbing or the electrical system. He was the previous owner, a meticulous British man in his early 60s who sold me this place after living here for 12 years. Mrs. Caldwell. His voice sounds strained, almost apologetic. I need you to come to my office right away. It's urgent. I glance at the clock. 3:15 on a Thursday afternoon. Is everything all right with the apartment? There's a pause that makes my stomach tighten. Not exactly. I forgot to disconnect the security camera in the living room before I moved out. I was reviewing the footage this morning to deactivate the system remotely, and I saw something you need to know about. It's regarding your daughter-in-law. My breath catches. Sienna. What did she do? Please, Mrs. Caldwell, this isn't something I can discuss over the phone. Can you come to my office? I'm at 847 Madison Avenue, Suite 402. 20 minutes later, I'm sitting across from Gregory in his elegantly appointed office overlooking Madison Avenue. He looks genuinely distressed, his normally composed demeanor fractured. On his mahogany desk sits a laptop, screen angled away from me. I want to apologize first, he begins, adjusting his gold-rimmed glasses. I should have mentioned the camera during our final walkthrough. It's a discrete unit I installed 5 years ago when I started traveling frequently for work. I completely forgot about it during the sale process. Gregory, please, just show me what you saw. He takes a breath and rotates the laptop toward me. The footage is from yesterday afternoon, between 2 and 4 p.m. The video starts at 2:07 p.m., according to the timestamp. I watch my daughter-in-law Sienna enter my apartment using the spare key I'd reluctantly given her the day before. Julian had insisted it would be helpful for her to have access while I was out buying furniture. She wants to help you settle in, Mom, he'd said with that hopeful smile that's been rare since his father died 3 years ago. I couldn't say no to him. On screen, Sienna is wearing designer athleisure, her highlighted hair pulled into a perfect ponytail. For the first 5 minutes, she does exactly what I'd expect. She walks through the living room with her phone held up, filming content for her Instagram. I can see her lips moving, narrating something about helping her amazing mother-in-law settle into her beautiful new home. She poses next to my Chagall print, arranges some of my decorative pillows, adjusts the lighting. This is Sienna's world, performing perfectly curated moments of her supposedly enviable life for her 847,000 followers. Then something changes. The moment she stops recording, her expression transforms. The warm, engaging smile vanishes completely. What replaces it sends ice through my veins. Her face becomes calculating, almost predatory. She walks directly toward my home office as if she knows exactly where it is, even though she's never been to this apartment before. How did she know where your office was? Gregory asks quietly, voicing my exact thought. I shake my head, unable to speak. Sienna enters my office and immediately begins opening drawers. She's not searching randomly. Her movements are methodical, purposeful. She starts with the filing cabinet, flipping through folders with practiced efficiency. When she finds my bank statements, she stops and begins photographing each page with her phone. I watch her zoom in on account balances, investment summaries, property deeds. My throat feels tight. How long does this go on? 18 minutes, Gregory says grimly. The timestamp shows 2:23 p.m. when Sienna discovers my safe. It's a small fireproof box I keep in the bottom drawer containing important documents. I watch her try the combination. She fails once, twice. On the third attempt, it opens. Jesus, I whisper. How did she know my combination? Sienna pulls out my will. My revised will that I had drawn up 6 months ago by Patricia Chen, my attorney of 15 years. I watch my daughter-in-law photograph every single page. She lingers on the sections detailing my estate, The $4.2 million in assets accumulated over 30 years as an international relations consultant, the portfolio of properties, the investment accounts. Everything I worked my entire adult life to build. But what happens next makes me feel physically ill. Sienna finds my tablet on the side table in the office, my iPad that I use for everything, emails, financial management, medical records. She unlocks it with my passcode. A passcode I've never shared with anyone except Julian, and only because he'd needed to access my calendar once when I was hospitalized 2 years ago with a minor procedure. For the next 12 minutes, I watch Sienna install something on my device. Gregory fast-forwards slightly, then stops at a particular moment. Based on my research, he says carefully, that appears to be remote monitoring software. Once installed, it gives the user access to everything on the device. Emails, messages, browsing history, documents, everything. My hands are shaking. I grip the armrests of the chair. She's been reading my emails? If this was installed yesterday, then yes, for the past 30 hours or so. I think about everything on that tablet. My correspondence with Patricia about updating beneficiaries, my medical records portal where I manage appointments, my private journals, the emails with my cardiologist about the genetic heart condition that killed my husband Thomas and that I was diagnosed with 4 months ago. The condition I haven't told Julian about because I didn't want to worry him while he's working on the biggest architectural project of his career. There's more, Gregory says softly. He fast-forwards to 3:41 p.m. Sienna is making a phone call. The audio quality isn't perfect, but I can hear her clearly enough. It's bigger than we thought, she says, pacing near the window. 4.2 million in liquid assets alone. That's not counting the properties or the business holdings she still has stakes in. My heart pounds as I watch her listen to whoever is on the other end. The will leaves everything to Julian directly. But here's the thing. She pauses, glancing at some papers she's holding. My medical records, I realize with growing horror. She has the same genetic heart condition that killed her husband. The cardiologist flagged it as high risk. She's on medication, but the prognosis isn't great. Another pause. I can see her face clearly on the screen. There's no warmth, no concern. Only calculation. We could accelerate things, Sienna says quietly. Her voice has dropped, become more careful. The medication she's on, if she missed doses, if there was additional stress, if certain supplements were introduced to her diet without her knowing. These things happen naturally all the time with cardiac patients. I feel like I can't breathe. I already set up the business entity like we discussed. Julian's listed as co-signer on the accounts, but he has no idea it exists. Once we have access to the estate, we can move quickly. The key is making sure everything happens before she changes anything else in that will. Gregory pauses the video. His face is pale. Mrs. Caldwell, I don't want to alarm you unnecessarily, but given the context, she's planning to kill me. The words come out flat, factual. I'm surprised by how calm I sound when inside I'm screaming. I don't know that for certain, Gregory says carefully, but the implications are deeply troubling. Combined with the fraudulent business entity she mentioned, the invasion of privacy, the theft of sensitive information. I barely hear him. I'm thinking about the past 2 years since Sienna married Julian. All the little moments that made me uncomfortable, but that I dismissed. Her constant questions about my finances masked as family planning discussions. Her insistence on being added to Julian's health insurance policy just in case. Her suggestion 3 weeks ago that I should update my life insurance to include secondary beneficiaries for family security. She brought me vitamins last month, I say suddenly. Said they were for heart health, that her personal trainer recommended them. She was so insistent I start taking them. Gregory's expression darkens. Do you still have them? At home. I never took them. Something about the way she pushed made me uncomfortable. Mrs. Caldwell, I think you need to involve the police and a lawyer, What I've shown you today, this is serious. This could be conspiracy to commit fraud at minimum, possibly worse. But I'm barely listening because Gregory has resumed the video to show me the final section. Sienna is in my office again, but this time she's looking through file folders I keep in the closet. She finds something, and her face lights up with triumph. It's documentation for an investment account, one where Julian is listed as joint owner for inheritance purposes. An account worth $1.8 million that Julian has no idea he has access to because I set it up as a trust that wouldn't vest until I passed away. Sienna photographs everything. Then she makes another call. "Found it," she says, "the joint account. If something happened in the next 48 hours before she potentially moves any of this around or adds restrictions, we'd have immediate access through Julian's authorization. He'd sign anything I put in front of him right now. He's so stressed with work, he barely reads what I ask him to sign anymore." She listens for a moment, then laughs. It's a sound I've never heard from her before, cold, devoid of the warmth she always performs around Julian and me. Don't worry, I've been documenting her declining health on my Instagram for months. Concerned daughter-in-law worried about beloved mother-in-law's heart condition. When something happens, it'll be sad but expected, tragic but natural. And Julian will be so devastated, he'll need me to handle everything. The video ends. I sit in Gregory's office, staring at the blank screen. Outside, Manhattan continues its indifferent rhythm. Cars honk. People hurry past on Madison Avenue. The world keeps turning, while mine has just shattered. "How long have you known my daughter-in-law was—" I can't finish the sentence. "I saw this footage for the first time this morning," Gregory says gently. "I called you immediately. Mrs. Caldwell, you need to understand something. I'm not a lawyer or a police officer, but I've seen enough in my 62 years to recognize when someone is in genuine danger. What your daughter-in-law discussed on those calls, regardless of whether she has the means or true intention to follow through, constitutes a threat. Combined with the identity fraud, the privacy violations, the financial manipulation, I need to talk to Julian. With respect, Mrs. Caldwell, I think your first call should be to an attorney, and possibly the police. Your son is married to this woman. He may not. He'll believe me." But even as I say it, doubt creeps in. Julian has been transformed by his love for Sienna. She's made him happier than I've seen him since before Thomas died. She's been the light in his life during our darkest period. How do I tell my son that the woman he loves, the woman who pulled him out of grief, is a calculating predator who married him for access to family wealth and is actively planning to accelerate my death? Gregory must see something in my face because his expression softens. I've made copies of everything. The footage is time-stamped and authenticated. I've also documented the camera's installation history and my failure to disclose it during the sale, so there's no question about chain of custody if this goes to court. "Thank you," I manage. "I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't." "I'm only grateful I forgot about that camera." He hands me a USB drive. "Everything is on here. Take it. Show it to whomever you need to. And Mrs. Caldwell, please be careful. I don't know who your daughter-in-law was talking to on those calls, but she's clearly not working alone." I take the drive and stand on shaking legs. The office suddenly feels too small, too warm. I need air. I need to think. I need to figure out how to protect both myself and my son from the woman who has spent 2 years systematically inserting herself into our lives like a parasite. As I walk to my car, I call Patricia Chen. She answers on the second ring. "Vivian, is everything all right? You sound— I need to see you immediately. Today. Right now, if possible. It's about Sienna." There's a pause. Patricia has been my attorney long enough to know my family dynamics. She's never explicitly said she distrusted Sienna, but I've caught the careful way she phrases things about my daughter-in-law, the slight hesitation before agreeing to add Sienna's name to any documents Julian requested. "Come to my office," Patricia says. "I'll clear my afternoon." 40 minutes later, I'm sitting in Patricia's Midtown office watching her review the footage on the USB drive. Her expression grows increasingly grim. When Sienna's voice echoes through the speakers discussing accelerating things, Patricia actually flinches. "Vivian, this is—" She stops, composes herself. She's been practicing law for 35 years, and I've never seen her rattled. "This is potentially criminal conspiracy. Multiple felonies. Identity theft, fraud, computer tampering, and depending on how a prosecutor interprets these phone conversations, possibly conspiracy to commit murder. I need to tell Julian." "I understand, but first, we need to involve the police. What your daughter-in-law has done, what she's actively planning, this isn't just a family matter anymore. She's committed crimes, serious crimes, and the references to your health, to accelerating— Vivian, you could be in immediate danger. I think about the vitamins Sienna gave me, the ones sitting unopened in my medicine cabinet. Can we test those supplements she brought me? See if there's anything in them?" "Absolutely. I have contacts who can fast-track that. But more urgently, I think you should consider your immediate safety. Is there somewhere you can stay where Sienna doesn't have access? Somewhere she doesn't know about?" The thought of hiding from my own daughter-in-law in my own city feels absurd. But then I remember her face on that video, the cold calculation when she thought no one was watching. I remember her words. "Accelerate things." I have a friend in Connecticut, Diane. She has a guest house. "Good. I want you to go there tonight. Don't tell Julian where you are yet. Not until we've had a chance to document everything properly and loop in the appropriate authorities. He'll worry if I suddenly disappear. Tell him you need a few days alone. Tell him you're processing the move, dealing with memories of his father. He'll understand that. But Vivian—" Patricia leans forward, her expression intense. "Do not confront Sienna. Do not give her any indication you know what she's done. Women like this, when they feel cornered, when they realize their plans are unraveling, they can become desperate. And desperate people do unpredictable things." I nod, but my mind is already racing ahead. To Julian's face when I tell him. To the life Sienna has so carefully constructed. The Instagram persona of the devoted wife and daughter-in-law. To every dinner I hosted where she smiled and laughed and played her role perfectly. To every time my instincts whispered that something was wrong, and I silenced them because I didn't want to be the overbearing mother-in-law, the bitter widow who couldn't accept her son's happiness. "There's something else," I say quietly. She mentioned a business entity with Julian listed as co-signer. Said he signs things without reading them now because he's stressed with work. Patricia's jaw tightens. We need to find out exactly what he's signed. If she's opened accounts or taken loans in his name, he could be legally liable even though he's an innocent party. We need to protect him too. As I leave Patricia's office with instructions to pack a bag and drive to Connecticut, as I call Diane and explain I need her guest house for a few days without explaining why, as I navigate Manhattan traffic with my mind spinning, one thought keeps circling back. How did I miss this? How did I not see what Sienna really was? But I know the answer. She showed me exactly what I expected to see, what every mother-in-law is conditioned to accept: the devoted wife, the helpful daughter-in-law, the young woman who brought light back into my grieving son's life. And underneath that performance, hidden behind manufactured Instagram moments and carefully deployed charm, was someone who saw my family not as people, but as assets to be acquired and exploited. My phone rings. Julian's name appears on the screen. For a moment, I consider not answering. But that would worry him, and I can't afford to raise suspicions. Not yet. "Hey, sweetheart," I say, forcing my voice to sound normal. "Mom, how's the unpacking going? Sienna said she stopped by yesterday to help, but you weren't there yet." Of course she told him that, the perfect cover story. "It's going well, slowly, but well. Actually, honey, I was thinking of taking a few days away. The move is bringing up a lot of memories of your father, and I just need some quiet time to process. I'm going to stay with Aunt Diane in Connecticut. There's concern in his voice. Are you okay? Do you want me to come with you? No, no. You have that presentation tomorrow for the Riverside project. I'll be fine. I just need a few days to clear my head. Okay, but call me if you need anything. I love you, Mom. I love you too, sweetheart. After I hang up, I let myself cry for the first time since walking into Gregory Hartman's office. Not for myself, but for Julian. For what this will do to him when he learns the truth about the woman he loves. I met Sienna Morgan on a cool October evening 3 years ago, exactly 2 months and 4 days after I buried my husband, Thomas. Julian brought her to Sunday dinner at our Westchester estate, the house where he'd grown up, where Thomas and I had built 32 years of marriage and memories. I wasn't ready for company. I was barely functioning, moving through each day in a fog of grief and prescription sleep aids. But Julian had called that morning with unusual insistence in his voice. Mom, I need you to meet someone. She's important. They'd been dating for 5 months at that point, though this was the first I'd heard of her. That should have been my first warning sign. Julian had always been open about his relationships. But grief makes you miss things. It softens your edges, dulls your instincts. Sienna arrived wearing a tasteful navy dress, carrying a bouquet of white roses. Mrs. Caldwell, she said, her voice warm and respectful. Julian has told me so much about you. I'm so sorry for your loss. I lost my father when I was 16, and I know there are no words that help. She was beautiful in that Instagram-ready way, perfectly highlighted hair, strategically applied makeup that looked natural but took effort, a smile that seemed genuine. 26 years old, working as a freelance photographer for charity events and society weddings. She came from Connecticut originally, she explained. Middle-class family. Studied communications at a state school. Moved to New York 5 years ago to pursue photography. What struck me most that evening was how she anticipated needs. She noticed my wine glass was empty before I did. She offered to help with dishes. She laughed at appropriate moments, but maintained a respectful solemnity when I mentioned Thomas. She asked about my career with what seemed like genuine interest, listened attentively when I described my work negotiating international business partnerships across emerging markets. You must be incredibly proud of everything you've built, she said. Julian told me you essentially created the framework for how American companies enter Southeast Asian markets. That's amazing. Julian beamed. He looked happier than I'd seen him since the funeral. My son had spent the 2 months after his father's death taking care of me, handling funeral arrangements, managing the estate paperwork, checking on me daily. The grief had aged him. But sitting next to Sienna that evening, he looked young again, hopeful. So I pushed down the small voice, whispering that something felt rehearsed about Sienna's performance. I told myself I was being paranoid, protective, unable to accept anyone in Thomas's space so soon. I smiled and welcomed her and pretended I didn't notice how her eyes cataloged details of the house. The artwork, the furniture, the visible markers of wealth accumulated over 3 decades. They got engaged 7 months later. Julian proposed during a weekend in the Hamptons at a restaurant I'd recommended. He called me immediately afterward, his voice full of joy I hadn't heard since before Thomas died. She said yes, Mom. I can't believe she said yes. That's wonderful, sweetheart. I meant it. Mostly. Have you set a date? We're thinking soon. Maybe this fall. Nothing big. Just family and close friends. We don't want to wait. They married 13 months after they met, in a small ceremony at a botanical garden in Brooklyn. 60 guests. I paid for everything without hesitation. The venue, the flowers, the photographer, the reception. It cost $42,000. Sienna cried when I presented them with the bill already settled, hugging me tightly. You didn't have to do this, she whispered. You're so generous. I promise I'll take care of Julian. I know how much you've already lost. At the wedding, I watched her work the room with practiced ease. She charmed my colleagues, my friends, my remaining family. She posed for endless photographs that would later populate her Instagram feed. She gave a toast, thanking me for welcoming her into the Caldwell family with open arms and open heart. Everyone said how lucky Julian was, how lovely she was, how perfect they were together. Only my attorney Patricia pulled me aside during the reception. "She's very polished," Patricia observed, watching Sienna laugh with a group near the bar. "You don't like her." "I didn't say that. I said she's polished. That's not necessarily a criticism." But Patricia's tone suggested otherwise. "Just make sure Julian keeps his finances separate for now. Prenuptial agreements exist for a reason. They're in love. I can't suggest a prenup 2 hours before the ceremony. No, but you can make sure your own assets are protected. I'll send you some updated documentation next week." I should have listened more carefully. Should have asked Patricia what she saw that I was too grief-clouded to recognize. But I was still taking sleep medication nightly, still waking up reaching for Thomas, still crying in the shower where Julian couldn't hear. I wanted my son to be happy. I wanted to believe in Sienna's warmth because the alternative, that someone could be that calculating, that false, seemed impossible. The first year of their marriage passed in what seemed like domestic harmony. Julian got promoted to senior architect at his firm. Sienna's Instagram following grew from 12,000 to over 300,000, primarily by posting aesthetically curated content about her life as a young wife in New York. Her feed was a carefully constructed fantasy, artfully arranged breakfast tables, perfectly styled outfits, glimpses of their brownstone apartment in Park Slope that I'd helped them purchase with a $200,000 down payment. She never posted anything too revealing about our family wealth, but there were hints. Designer handbags visible in backgrounds, mentions of family dinners at Mom's estate, photos at charity galas I'd invited them to. Each post garnered thousands of comments from women praising her lifestyle, asking for tips, envying her seemingly perfect existence. 6 months into the marriage, she quit freelance photography entirely. "I can focus on growing my brand full-time now," she explained over dinner at my house. "The influencer economy is exploding. With Julian's support, I can really build something." Julian looked proud. "She already has several sponsorship deals. This could become a real business." I nodded and smiled, but I was calculating. Sienna's income from Instagram at that point was maybe $30,000 annually. Julian made $120,000. They were living in a brownstone with a $4,500 monthly mortgage. The numbers didn't balance without the assumption that I would continue to supplement their lifestyle, which I had been doing, covering dinners, gifting them a new car when their old one died, paying for their honeymoon to Italy. The questions about my finances began subtly about 8 months into their marriage. We were having lunch at a cafe in Soho when Sienna said, "Julian mentioned you're thinking about retirement. That must feel incredible after such an accomplished career." "I'm considering it," I admitted. "I'm 54. I've been working since I was 23. It might be time." "You must have built such impressive retirement accounts. Julian said you were always financially savvy." She smiled over her salad, the question implicit. "I've been fortunate." "Have you thought about estate planning?" "I only ask because my mother always says it's important to have everything organized, for family security." I looked at her carefully. "I have an attorney who handles all of that." "Of course, I just meant, if anything ever happened, it would be good to know Julian is taken care of, after losing his father so suddenly." She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "I worry about you being alone in that big house, about your health. Heart disease runs in families, doesn't it?" My blood chilled slightly. "How did you know Thomas died of a heart attack?" "Julian told me. It's so scary, genetic conditions like that. Have you been screened?" I had been, just 3 weeks earlier. My cardiologist had found the same congenital defect that killed Thomas, a weakened arterial wall that could rupture without warning. I was on medication and monitoring, but the prognosis was guarded. I hadn't told Julian yet because he was in the middle of a major project presentation and I didn't want to worry him unnecessarily. "I'm fine," I said to Sienna. "Healthy as ever." But her eyes held mine a moment too long, and I felt something predatory in her gaze before she smiled and changed the subject to a new handbag collaboration she was negotiating. The questions continued over the following months, always casual, always framed as concern or family planning. How much was the Westchester estate worth? Did I have life insurance beyond what my consulting firm provided? Were my investment accounts in my name alone, or did Julian have access? Had I updated my will since Thomas died? I deflected most of them, but Sienna was persistent. She'd drop comments during family dinners, circle back to topics I'd dismissed weeks earlier, find new angles to approach the same information. Julian never seemed to notice. He was drowning in work, managing 3 major projects simultaneously, leaving early and coming home late. Sienna made sure to mention how stressed he was, how she was taking care of everything at home, how she'd started managing their household finances to lighten his burden. "I even set up a new account structure," she said proudly one evening. "Julian just has to sign some papers and everything will be streamlined. He's so busy, he barely has time to read what I put in front of him." That comment lodged in my mind uncomfortably, but when I mentioned it to Julian later, he brushed it off. "Sienna's amazing with organization. She's got spreadsheets for everything. I'm lucky she handles that stuff." The real shift came 6 months ago. I'd sold a significant stake in a consulting partnership I'd built over 20 years, netting $2.3 million. It was public information, announced in business journals, mentioned in industry newsletters. Sienna texted me the day the news broke. "Congratulations on the sale. Julian said you worked so hard building that partnership. You must be thrilled. Celebrating with champagne tonight." We did celebrate. Sienna asked detailed questions about the sale structure, the timeline, the tax implications. She wanted to know everything: where the money was going, how it would be invested, whether I planned to make any gifts to Julian. "I'm putting most of it into diversified investments," I said carefully. "Some will go to charitable foundations. I haven't decided about the rest." "You should enjoy it," Sienna said warmly. "Travel. Buy things you want. You've earned it. Though of course I'm sure you want to make sure Julian's future is secure too. That's what mothers do." Julian looked uncomfortable. "Mom doesn't need to worry about my future. I'm doing fine." But Sienna persisted. "Of course you are, honey. I just meant that family wealth planning is important. Right, Vivian?" I met her eyes across the table. For just a moment, her mask slipped. I saw hunger there. Calculation. Then she smiled, and it was gone, replaced by the warm daughter-in-law performance she'd perfected. That was when I asked Patricia to revise my will. I set up trust structures that would protect assets from creditors and limit immediate access. I changed beneficiary designations. I created that joint account with Julian that wouldn't vest until my death. And I did it all quietly, through secure channels, using Patricia's office for meetings and paper documentation stored at her firm. I thought I was being careful. I thought I was protecting myself and Julian. I never imagined Sienna had already found ways to monitor me, that my passwords had been compromised, that she'd been reading my confidential emails and tracking my financial movements for months, that she'd been documenting my declining health on social media to establish a narrative for when she decided I'd become more valuable dead than alive. I spent 3 days at Diane's guest house in Connecticut, a converted carriage house on her property in Litchfield County. Diane has been my friend since graduate school. 30 years of shared history, mutual support, and the kind of trust where I don't have to explain everything. When I arrived with a hastily packed suitcase and tear-streaked face, she simply hugged me and handed me a glass of wine. "Stay as long as you need," she said. "The main house is there if you want company. Otherwise, you have complete privacy." I need the privacy. I need space to think, to plan, to process the fact that my daughter-in-law has been systematically preparing to accelerate my death while stealing my identity and manipulating my son. Patricia calls twice daily with updates. The police are involved now, Detective Sarah Morrison from the NYPD's Financial Crimes Unit. They're building a case, but it takes time. Computer forensics experts are analyzing my tablet, tracing the monitoring software Sienna installed. Financial investigators are searching for the fraudulent business entities she mentioned. We need to be thorough, Patricia explains during one call. If we move too quickly, if we confront her before we have ironclad evidence, she could destroy records, claim ignorance, turn this into a he said, she said situation. Worse, if she realizes we're on to her, she might accelerate whatever plans she has. So I just hide, while she's still free to be around Julian? Detective Morrison has someone watching your son's residence discreetly. If Sienna makes any suspicious moves, they'll intervene. But Vivian, we need you to remain somewhere she can't access, at least until we have enough to arrest her. The supplements Sienna gave me are being analyzed at a private laboratory Patricia uses for sensitive cases. Results will take 72 hours. Meanwhile, I'm trapped in Connecticut, lying to my son about why I needed this sudden retreat. Julian calls every evening. Each conversation is torture. How are you feeling, Mom? Diane says you're sleeping better. I am. The quiet here helps. I hate lying to him. Every word feels like a betrayal, even though I'm protecting him. Sienna sends her love. She wanted to drive up and visit you, but I told her you needed space. She's worried about you, though. She keeps saying she hopes you're taking your heart medication regularly. My breath catches. She said that? Yeah. She noticed you seemed tired lately. She's very observant about health stuff. Observant. That's one word for it. More accurate words. Calculating, predatory, murderous. But I can't say any of that. Not yet. Tell her thank you for the concern. I'm taking everything my doctor prescribed. After I hang up, I call Patricia immediately. Sienna is asking Julian about my heart medication. She's establishing concern, creating documentation of her supposed care for my well-being. It fits the pattern, Patricia says grimly. She's building her narrative. The devoted daughter-in-law who worried about your health, who tried to help. When Detective Morrison and I reviewed the Instagram footage more carefully, we found at least 18 posts over the past 6 months where Sienna mentions being concerned about family health or supporting loved ones through medical challenges. She's been laying groundwork. On day 4, the lab results come back on the supplements. Patricia calls at 7 in the morning, her voice tight with controlled anger. The vitamins Sienna gave you contain standard ingredients, B12, D3, magnesium, but they're also laced with compounds that would interact dangerously with your cardiac medication. Not enough to be immediately lethal, but enough to cause cumulative damage over weeks or months. Combined with your heart condition, they would almost certainly trigger a cardiac event that would appear completely natural. I sit down hard on the guest house sofa. She was poisoning me. Slowly, methodically. The medical examiner says that if you'd been taking these daily as directed, you would likely have experienced a fatal heart attack within 6 to 8 weeks. And because the compounds metabolize quickly, they probably wouldn't show up in a standard autopsy unless someone was specifically looking for them. Can we prove she knew what was in them? We're working on it. The bottle has no manufacturer's label. These were custom made. We're tracing the purchase records now. Detective Morrison thinks we can connect them to Sienna through credit card records or pharmacy databases. That afternoon, I receive an unexpected call from Gregory Hartman. Mrs. Caldwell, I hope I'm not intruding. I've been thinking about your situation constantly. I wanted you to know that I reviewed all the security footage from my camera system. I had cameras in other rooms that I'd also forgotten about. There's additional material you should see. He emails me encrypted files. More videos, these from a camera in the kitchen that captured a different angle. In one clip from 3 weeks before I bought the apartment, when Gregory was still living there but traveling for business, Sienna enters his apartment. She's using a key, moving confidently through space she shouldn't have access to. Gregory's voice is shocked when I call him. I never gave her a key. I don't understand how she got in. She probably copied mine during the final walkthrough, I say, remembering how Sienna had tagged along that day, claiming she wanted to help me visualize the space. She'd handled my keys several times, offering to hold them while I measured rooms. In the footage, Sienna moves through Gregory's apartment just as she did through mine, methodically searching, photographing documents. She finds his filing cabinet, his personal records. Then she locates his home office computer and spends 40 minutes accessing files. The timestamp shows this was during a window when I was still negotiating the purchase, still weeks away from closing. She was researching you, Detective Morrison says when I forward the footage. Learning about the building, the systems, the layout. She was planning this infiltration before you even owned the property. This suggests premeditation on a level we haven't seen before. The detective's words chill me. This wasn't opportunistic. Sienna didn't see a chance and take it. She engineered the entire situation, possibly from the moment she met Julian. Every step calculated, every move planned. Patricia arranges a secure video conference with Detective Morrison and the financial crimes team. They've traced the fraudulent business entity Sienna mentioned in her phone calls, Morgan Caldwell Consulting LLC, registered in Delaware 6 months ago. Julian is listed as co-founder and has signing authority on 3 business accounts, totaling $87,000 in debt. Your son never signed the actual incorporation papers, Detective Morrison explains. His signature was forged. We've confirmed that with a handwriting analyst. But Mrs. Caldwell, he did sign some documents his wife put in front of him over the past months, loan applications, credit agreements, without reading them carefully. He thought he was signing household paperwork. The signatures are genuine on those items, which makes proving fraud more complicated. Can Julian be held liable for the debt? Potentially, yes. That's why we need to move carefully. We have to prove Sienna's deception while protecting your son from legal consequences of her actions. They've also traced the phone calls Sienna made from my apartment. One number connects to a burner phone registered under a false name in New Jersey. The other connects to a man named Marcus Webb, 34, who has a criminal record for identity theft and financial fraud. He served 18 months in federal prison 4 years ago. We believe he's Sienna's partner in this scheme, Detective Morrison says. Phone records show they've been in contact for over 2 years, which means she was involved with him before and during her marriage to your son. We're working on bringing him in for questioning, but he's proven difficult to locate. 2 years. Sienna was planning this before she even married Julian, maybe from the moment she met him. My son wasn't her husband. He was her mark, her access point to family wealth. The life she built with him was a performance, a long con executed with patience and precision. On day 6 in Connecticut, I'm reviewing financial records Patricia sent when my phone rings. Unknown number. I almost don't answer, but something makes me pick up. Mrs. Caldwell? A woman's voice, tentative and young. Yes? My name is Rachel Morgan. I'm Sienna's younger sister. I need to talk to you about what's happening. Is this line secure? My pulse quickens. Who gave you this number? I got it from Sienna's phone records. I'm sorry for invading her privacy, but I'm scared. I think she's planning to hurt you. Where are you? Connecticut. I drove from New Haven. I'm a graduate student at Yale. I haven't spoken to Sienna in almost 2 years, not since our mother died. But I've been following her Instagram, watching her construct this perfect life, and I know my sister. I know what she's capable of. I meet Rachel at a diner in Hartford, a neutral location Patricia approves after vetting Rachel's identity. She's 27, looks younger, with dark hair and nervous eyes that remind me of Sienna before I learned what lay beneath her performance. Our father lost everything when I was 14 and Sienna was 16, Rachel begins, stirring coffee she doesn't drink. His business collapsed in the 2008 financial crisis. We went from upper-middle-class comfort to food stamps in 6 months. Our mother never recovered. She developed severe depression, stopped leaving the house. Our father started drinking. Sienna took it the hardest. How so? She became obsessed with security, with money, with status. She'd steal from other kids at school, not because we needed it, but because she needed to feel like she had control, like she'd never be vulnerable again. She got caught stealing jewelry from a classmate's mother. The family didn't press charges because Sienna was so young, but I saw her face when they confronted her. She wasn't sorry. She was angry she'd been caught. Rachel pulls out her phone, shows me photos. Teenage Sienna, harder looking than the woman I know. She left for New York the day she turned 18, cut off contact with everyone except our mother. When Mom died 2 years ago, Sienna didn't come to the funeral. She sent flowers with a note that said she was too busy building her future to dwell on the past. Why are you telling me this now? Because I saw her Instagram post yesterday. She wrote about how worried she is about her beloved mother-in-law's health challenges. She linked to a charity for cardiac research. She's getting hundreds of comments about what a caring daughter-in-law she is. And I know my sister. When Sienna starts performing public concern, it means she's building an alibi. It means someone is about to get hurt. Rachel describes a pattern from Sienna's teenage years. Elaborate schemes to manipulate classmates, parents, teachers. Small-scale cons that were practice runs for larger deceptions. She's been planning something like this her whole adult life. She told me once, before we stopped speaking, that she'd found a way to marry into security, that she'd met someone from a wealthy family. I assumed she meant Julian was rich on his own. I didn't realize she was targeting him because of you. Does she know you're here? No, I drove up using cash, left my phone at home. If she finds out I talked to you, I don't know what she'll do. Sienna doesn't forgive people who get in her way. I arranged for Rachel to stay at a hotel under a false name, paid for with cash Patricia provides. Her testimony will be crucial for establishing Sienna's long-term pattern of manipulation and fraud. Detective Morrison interviews Rachel for 6 hours, documenting everything. That evening, Patricia calls with an update that makes my stomach drop. Sienna visited your apartment today. She used the key you'd given her. Apparently Julian still thinks she has it with your permission. The doorman confirmed she spent approximately 40 minutes inside. We don't know what she was doing because the cameras Gregory installed are obviously no longer active. Did she take anything? Unknown. But Vivian, this is escalating. She knows you've been gone for a week. She's been asking Julian repeatedly when you're coming home. She volunteered to drive to Connecticut to check on you, but Julian said no, she's getting anxious. What if she realizes I know? That's the risk. Detective Morrison wants to move soon, within the next 72 hours. We have enough now to arrest her on multiple charges: computer tampering, identity theft, forgery, fraud, and potentially attempted murder based on the supplement evidence and her recorded phone conversations. But we need to coordinate carefully. Sienna's partner Marcus Webb is still at large, and we don't want him destroying evidence or fleeing. What about Julian? When do we tell him? Patricia's silence is heavy. Detective Morrison suggests we wait until after the arrest. Having Julian present during confrontation could compromise his testimony. He's married to her. There are spousal privilege complications. And emotionally, Vivian, this will destroy him. The detective thinks it's better if he learns after Sienna is already in custody, when the evidence is undeniable. I think about my son, about how his face lights up when he talks about Sienna, about how she pulled him from grief after Thomas died, about how thoroughly she's deceived him, made him complicit in schemes he doesn't know exist, about how learning the truth will shatter him. I need to be the one who tells him, I say, not the police, not lawyers, me. He deserves to hear it from his mother. If that's what you want, we can arrange it after the arrest. We'll bring Julian to a secure location, and you can explain everything with Detective Morrison present to answer questions. The next morning, day 8 of my exile in Connecticut, Detective Morrison calls with urgency in her voice. We need to move now. We intercepted a phone call between Sienna and Marcus Webb. They're planning something for tomorrow night. Webb said, "We can't wait any longer. If she changes the will or moves the assets, we're finished. It has to be tomorrow." What are they planning? We're not certain, but the context suggests they're planning to harm you. Sienna told Webb she'd convinced Julian that you need to come home, that staying in Connecticut is making you worse. She plans to be at your apartment when you arrive. Webb will be there too. My blood turns cold. An ambush. We believe so, which is why we're executing the arrest today. Teams are being deployed now to bring in both Sienna and Webb simultaneously. I need you to stay exactly where you are until I give you clearance. Do not contact Julian yet. We'll bring him in for questioning after we have Sienna in custody. I spend the next 6 hours in agonizing limbo, watching my phone, waiting for updates. Diane sits with me, holding my hand, not asking questions I can't answer. At 4:30 p.m., Patricia calls. They have her. Sienna was arrested at a coffee shop in Park Slope. She fought, tried to destroy her phone, screamed that it was all a misunderstanding. They recovered her phone before she could wipe it. Marcus Webb was arrested simultaneously at a warehouse in New Jersey. They found documents there, detailed plans, timelines, financial projections of your estate. Vivian, they had a blueprint for how they'd kill you and make it look natural. I can't speak. The reality of how close I came, how narrowly I escaped, crashes over me. Julian is being brought to the precinct now. Detective Morrison says you can come down whenever you're ready. He doesn't know anything yet. He thinks he's being asked routine questions about Sienna's whereabouts. I drive back to Manhattan with Diane, who insists on accompanying me. At the precinct, Detective Morrison meets me in a private conference room. Your son is in interview room 3. He's confused and frightened. He thinks Sienna was arrested by mistake. He's been asking for a lawyer for her, not himself. He doesn't understand yet that he's a victim, not a suspect. How much do I tell him? Everything. He needs to understand the full scope of what was done to him and to you. We'll show him the evidence afterward, but it will be better coming from you first. They bring Julian in. He looks terrible, pale, confused, his architect's tie loosened, his eyes red. When he sees me, relief floods his face. Mom, thank God. There's been a horrible mistake. The police arrested Sienna. They won't tell me why. They're saying things about fraud and conspiracy, but it doesn't make any sense. I need to get her a lawyer. I need to... Julian. I take his hands. They're shaking. Sit down, sweetheart. I need to tell you something, and I need you to listen to everything before you respond. What's going on? Why are you even here? I take a breath and begin. 8 days ago, Gregory Hartman called me. He found security camera footage from my new apartment, footage of Sienna breaking into my home, stealing my financial information, and discussing plans to accelerate my death so you could inherit my estate. Julian's face goes blank. What? She's been planning this since before you married her, possibly since she met you. Everything she's done, marrying you, befriending me, the Instagram performance, it was all designed to position herself to steal from our family. And when stealing wasn't enough, she decided I was worth more dead than alive. I watch my son's world collapse in real time, and it breaks my heart more than anything Sienna did to me. Julian doesn't speak for a full minute. He just stares at me, his face cycling through expressions I can't read, disbelief, confusion, denial. Then he shakes his head slowly, like he's trying to dislodge my words from his mind. No, that's not possible. Sienna wouldn't. She loves me. She loves our family. Julian, I have proof. Hours of video footage, phone recordings, financial documents. The police have been investigating for over a week. Then the police are wrong. His voice rises, defensive. Someone set her up. Maybe someone hacked her accounts, used her identity. Sienna wouldn't hurt anyone. She's been nothing but supportive since Dad died. She helped pull me out of that depression. She gave me vitamins laced with compounds that would have killed me within 2 months. The words come out flat, factual. They were designed to interact with my heart medication and trigger a fatal cardiac event. The lab analysis came back 3 days ago. Julian's face drains of color. You're lying. I wish I was. Detective Morrison enters with a laptop. Mr. Caldwell, I know this is difficult, but your mother is telling you the truth. I need to show you evidence, and I need you to watch it with an open mind. I don't want to see anything. This is insane. My wife is not a criminal. Your wife is currently in custody on charges of computer tampering, identity theft, forgery, conspiracy to commit fraud, and attempted murder, Detective Morrison says quietly. Her partner, Marcus Webb, is also in custody. They've both been read their rights. Neither is cooperating, but we don't need their cooperation. The evidence is overwhelming. She opens the laptop and plays the footage from Gregory's camera. Julian watches Sienna enter my apartment, watches her film her Instagram content, watches the performance drop away as she begins systematically searching my office. His hands grip the edge of the table, knuckles white. When Sienna's voice comes through the speakers, $4.2 million in liquid assets alone, Julian flinches. When she says, we could accelerate things, he stands up abruptly, knocking his chair backward. Turn it off. Mr. Caldwell, you need to see. I said turn it off. His voice cracks. He's shaking now, visibly trembling. That's not. She wouldn't. I stand and put my hand on his arm. Julian, look at me. He turns, and I see my son as he was at 8 years old, when he fell off his bike and came to me bleeding and crying. The same devastation, the same need for me to fix what's broken. But this time, I can't fix it. I can only stand with him while his world shatters. She was never who you thought she was, I say softly. From the very beginning, this was a con. She researched our family. She found you deliberately. She studied how to make you fall in love with her. Everything you think you know about your marriage is a lie. We've been together for 3 years. His voice is barely a whisper. We've lived together. We've shared everything. How could I not know? Because she's exceptionally good at deception. Because you're a trusting person who sees the best in people. Because she exploited your grief over your father and used it to make you dependent on her. Detective Morrison pulls up more files on the laptop. Mr. Caldwell, we need to discuss the business accounts opened in your name. Morgan Caldwell Consulting, LLC. Does that name sound familiar? Julian shakes his head, looking lost. You're listed as co-founder. There are 3 accounts with your forged signature totaling $87,000 in debt. Do you remember signing incorporation papers or loan applications for a consulting business? I never. Sienna handles our paperwork. She brings me things to sign sometimes. Household stuff. Bills. I thought. He stops, reality dawning. I signed things without reading them. We believe Mrs. Caldwell mixed fraudulent documents in with legitimate household paperwork over a period of months. You're a victim of identity theft, Mr. Caldwell. We're working to clear your name, but we need your full cooperation. Julian sits back down, or more accurately, collapses into the chair. He puts his head in his hands. How long have you known? He asks me. 8 days, since Gregory called. 8 days. He looks up, and there's anger now mixing with the devastation. You've known for 8 days and you didn't tell me? The police asked me not to. They needed time to build the case, to make sure we had enough evidence to arrest her. If we'd confronted her too soon, she would have destroyed evidence or disappeared. Julian, she and her partner were planning to kill me tomorrow night. If we'd waited, if we'd given her any warning. Her partner? Julian's voice breaks. There's someone else? Detective Morrison shows him photos of Marcus Webb, phone records documenting 2 years of contact between him and Sienna. We believe they met before she met you. This was a coordinated effort from the beginning. Julian stares at the photos like they're written in a language he can't understand. She was cheating on me? We don't know the nature of their relationship. Detective Morrison says carefully. But yes, she's been in constant contact with this man throughout your marriage, planning, coordinating. He has a criminal record for financial fraud. My son puts his head down on the table and starts to cry. Not quiet tears, but deep, wrenching sobs that shake his whole body. I move to him, put my hand on his back, and he doesn't pull away. Everything was a lie, he chokes out. Our whole marriage, every moment, every conversation, every time she said she loved me. I'm so sorry, sweetheart. How did I not see it? How could I be that stupid? You're not stupid. You love someone who didn't deserve it. That's not stupidity. That's being human. He cries for several minutes while Detective Morrison and I wait silently. When he finally lifts his head, his eyes are swollen and his face is blotchy, but there's something new in his expression, something harder. I want to see everything, he says. Every piece of evidence, every recording, every document. I want to know exactly what she did and how she did it. Detective Morrison nods. We can arrange that. But Mr. Caldwell, I have to warn you, it's extensive, it's going to be painful, and you're going to learn things about someone you loved that will fundamentally change how you see the past 3 years of your life. I need to know. If I'm going to move forward, I need to understand what was real and what was performance. Very little was real, I say gently. I'm sorry, but you need to prepare yourself for that truth. Julian stands, wiping his face with his sleeve. When can I see her? You can't, Detective Morrison says. Not until after arraignment, and even then, I strongly advise against it. She's a flight risk and extremely manipulative. If she gets access to you, she'll try to convince you this is all a misunderstanding. She'll use your emotional connection to manipulate you into helping her. I won't help her. You say that now. But Mr. Caldwell, this woman has been manipulating you expertly for 3 years. She knows exactly what buttons to push, exactly what to say to make you doubt reality. Every detective who's worked these cases will tell you, don't give her the opportunity. Julian looks at me. Did you ever like her, even at the beginning? I consider lying, softening it. But he deserves honesty now. No, I had concerns from the first dinner, but you were so happy after losing your father. I convinced myself I was being paranoid. I wish I'd trusted my instincts. Your instincts were right. He says it bitterly. About everything. That doesn't give me any satisfaction. I would have been happy to be wrong if it meant you were truly loved. He nods slowly, processing. Then he asks the question I've been dreading. What happens now? Detective Morrison explains the process methodically. Sienna and Marcus Webb are being held pending arraignment. The charges are severe enough that bail will likely be denied or set impossibly high. The evidence is overwhelming. Video footage, phone records, forensic analysis of the monitoring software, the poisoned supplements, forged documents, financial fraud. The district attorney's office is treating this as a priority case because of the attempted murder element. Your wife will likely be offered a plea deal, Detective Morrison tells Julian. 20 years reduced to 12 with cooperation. But given the severity and premeditation, the DA may push for trial. These cases can take months, sometimes years. Julian sits numbly through the explanation. I can see him trying to process, trying to reconcile the woman he thought he knew with the criminal being described. Finally, he asks, "Can I see the rest of the evidence now?" We spend the next 3 hours in that conference room. Detective Morrison walks us through everything systematically. More footage from Gregory's cameras showing Sienna's multiple break-ins. The complete phone transcripts between her and Marcus Webb, dating back 2.5 years, spanning the entire duration of Julian's relationship with her. Financial records showing how she'd been siphoning small amounts from Julian's accounts, building credit card debt in his name, creating false paper trails. She opened 17 accounts using your information, Detective Morrison explains. Credit cards, store accounts, even a car loan. The total debt is over $200,000. Julian's face goes gray. 200,000! We're working with financial crime specialists to prove fraud and clear your liability. But Mr. Caldwell, this will take time. Your credit is destroyed. Your financial identity has been compromised. You'll need to file multiple police reports, work with credit agencies, possibly declare bankruptcy to protect yourself from her debts. They show us the documents recovered from Marcus Webb's warehouse, detailed plans typed out like a business proposal, timelines, risk assessments, projected asset distribution following my death. They'd calculated everything. How long before Julian would inherit, how much they could liquidate immediately, how they'd move money offshore. There were even contingency plans if I survived the first cardiac event, including escalation strategies. They planned to stage a home invasion if the supplements didn't work, Detective Morrison says quietly. Make it look like you died during a robbery. Webb has connections to people who do that kind of work. I feel sick. Julian looks worse. Then Detective Morrison shows us Sienna's private notes recovered from her laptop, a journal documenting her entire operation. Reading it is like watching someone dissect my family clinically, without emotion. Julian is perfect, one early entry reads. Wealthy family, still grieving his father, desperate for connection. Easy to manipulate through emotional vulnerability. Mother is the real target. 4M+ in assets, heart condition, lives alone. Timeline, 2 to 3 years to establish trust, then accelerate. Another entry from 6 months into their relationship. Julian proposed. Perfect timing. He's completely dependent on me emotionally now. Mother still suspicious, but won't risk alienating her son. Wedding will cement my position. Need to start documenting her declining health for future narrative. From a year ago. Located Gregory Hartman's property, perfect for surveillance and access. Mother is selling estate, vulnerable moment. Will encourage her to downsize to Manhattan, where I can maintain closer monitoring. Julian signs whatever I put in front of him now. Trust is complete. Julian reads these entries with a kind of horrified fascination. She documented everything, like I was a project. That's exactly what you were, Detective Morrison says. You and your mother both. This was a long-term operation executed with remarkable patience and planning. We see text messages between Sienna and Marcus Webb that are even more damning. Discussions about my daily routines, my health status, my social calendar. Marcus asking, when are you going to close this? We've been working this mark for 3 years. Sienna responding, soon, she's moving to the new apartment next month. That's when we accelerate. Isolated location, access already established, medical narrative in place. There are photographs too. Sienna had taken pictures of me without my knowledge over months, at restaurants, walking in my neighborhood, entering my doctor's office. Surveillance photos tracking my movements. She was stalking you, Julian says, his voice hollow. While living in my house, sharing my bed, she was stalking my mother and planning her murder. We believe the original plan was to make it look like natural causes, Detective Morrison explains. The supplements would trigger a heart attack that would be attributed to your genetic condition. Sienna had established herself publicly as the concerned daughter-in-law. She'd been posting about your health challenges, her worry, her caregiving efforts. When you died, she'd be seen as the grieving family member who tried to help. And if that didn't work, I ask, then Webb would stage the home invasion. Either way, you'd be dead. Julian would inherit, and Sienna would help her grieving husband manage his sudden wealth. We found documents showing they'd planned to divorce you within a year of your mother's death, she says to Julian, after they'd successfully moved assets offshore. The divorce would be amicable. Sienna would claim she couldn't handle the grief, needed space. She'd walk away with half of what she'd helped you liquidate, plus whatever she'd already moved to hidden accounts. Julian stands abruptly. I need air. I can't. There's more, Detective Morrison says gently, and you need to see it before you leave. She plays one final recording. It's from yesterday, the day before Sienna's arrest. A phone call between her and Marcus Webb that was intercepted by the investigation team. Sienna's voice. The old bitch has been in Connecticut for over a week. Something's wrong. She's never stayed away this long. Marcus. Maybe she's actually sick. Your supplements working? Sienna. She never took them. I checked her medicine cabinet when I was at the apartment yesterday. The bottle hasn't been opened. She suspected something. Marcus. Then we're compromised. We need to abort. Sienna. No, we're too close. I've invested 3 years in this. I'm not walking away empty-handed. We move tomorrow night. I'll convince Julian to call her, tell her she needs to come home. You'll be waiting at the apartment. Marcus. And if she doesn't come alone? Sienna. She will. She always does. The paranoid widow living in her grief. Once she's dealt with, we implement Plan B immediately. Julian gets the news, I play devastated daughter-in-law, and we start moving assets within 48 hours. The recording ends. The silence in the room is absolute. Julian's voice, when he finally speaks, is barely audible. She was going to have me call my mother into a trap, use me to lure her to her death. Yes, Detective Morrison confirms. And I would have done it. If you'd asked me yesterday to call Mom and tell her to come home, I would have done it without question. I would have helped kill her without knowing. The realization breaks something in him. He starts shaking, then crying again. But this time it's different. Not grief, but rage mixed with horror and self-recrimination. How could I be so blind? How could I not see what she was? I go to him, pull him into my arms like I did when he was a child. Because you loved her. Because you're a good person who doesn't expect evil from the people closest to you. Because she was extraordinarily skilled at deception. None of this is your fault. I brought her into our family. I vouched for her. I gave her access to everything. I signed documents without reading them. I defended her when you had doubts. This is absolutely my fault. Julian, look at me. I hold his face in my hands, force him to meet my eyes. Sienna Morgan is a criminal who has been running cons since she was a teenager. She targeted you deliberately because you were vulnerable after losing your father. She studied our family, learned our weaknesses, and executed a plan that took years to unfold. You are her victim, not her accomplice. But I should have seen. She fooled everyone. She fooled Patricia, who's been reading people in courtrooms for 35 years. She fooled your friends, her Instagram followers, everyone at our social functions. She was that good. You're not stupid or blind. You were targeted by a professional. Detective Morrison adds, Mr. Caldwell, we've seen cases like this before. Sophisticated, long-term cons executed by people who make a career of manipulation. The victims are often intelligent, successful people because those are the targets worth pursuing. Your wife saw your mother's wealth and your grief as an opportunity. She planned and executed methodically. Nothing about this reflects poorly on you. Julian pulls away from me, wipes his face. What happens to me now? Financially, I mean. If I'm liable for all that debt? We're working on that, Detective Morrison says. The forgery experts have confirmed that while some signatures on loan documents are genuine, they were obtained through fraud. You believed you were signing household paperwork. The incorporation documents for the consulting company have completely forged signatures. We have testimony from Rachel Morgan about Sienna's history of fraud and manipulation. We're building a strong case that you're an identity theft victim, not a willing participant. Rachel? Julian looks confused. Who's Rachel? Sienna's younger sister, I explain. She reached out to me 6 days ago. She's been estranged from Sienna for 2 years, but she recognized the pattern. She testified against her own sister to protect us. Julian absorbs this, adding it to the overwhelming weight of revelations. Does Sienna know her sister talked? She does now, Detective Morrison says. Rachel is in protective custody temporarily. Sienna made threats during booking when she learned about her sister's testimony. What kind of threats? the kind that suggests Sienna has no loyalty to anyone. She told the booking officer that her sister would regret choosing the wrong side and that family traitors get what they deserve. We're taking the threats seriously given her demonstrated capacity for violence. Patricia Chen arrives at the precinct around 8 p.m. I haven't seen her since this morning when Sienna was arrested. She looks exhausted but grimly satisfied. The arraignment is set for tomorrow morning, she tells us. The DA is charging both Sienna and Marcus Webb with conspiracy to commit murder, attempted murder, identity theft, computer crimes, fraud, and a list of other charges. They're asking for remand without bail given the flight risk and severity of charges. Will they get it? I ask. Almost certainly. The evidence is overwhelming, and Webb has a criminal record. Sienna has no ties to the community besides Julian, and obviously he's not going to vouch for her. She'll be held at Rikers pending trial. Julian flinches at the mention of his name. I need to do something. I need to file for divorce, cancel our joint accounts, protect myself financially. Tell me what to do. Patricia sits down, pulls out a legal pad. First thing tomorrow, we file for divorce on grounds of fraud. We'll also file for annulment based on fraudulent inducement. She married you under false pretenses with criminal intent. We petition the court to freeze all joint assets so she can't access anything from custody. We file identity theft reports with every credit agency. We work with the DA's office to establish you as a victim, not a suspect. It's going to be a process, Julian, but we'll get through it. How long? Months, probably. Maybe longer. These things are complicated when criminal charges are involved. But you'll be okay. You have resources, you have legal support, and you have your mother. Julian looks at me. I'm sorry. For everything. For not believing you when you had doubts. For bringing her into our lives. Stop, I interrupt. We're not doing blame. We're moving forward. Together. Detective Morrison's phone rings. She steps away to answer, then returns with an interesting expression. Sienna's attorney just contacted the DA's office. She wants to make a deal. Already? Patricia looks surprised. She's facing decades in prison. Her attorney probably explained that the evidence against her is ironclad. She's offering to testify against Marcus Webb in exchange for a reduced sentence. What about the charges related to me? I ask. Still on the table. But if she cooperates fully, provides information about other potential victims Webb has targeted, helps recover hidden assets, the DA might reduce murder charges to assault with intent, knock some years off the sentence. She could be looking at 12 to 15 instead of life. Julian's face hardens. So she tries to kill my mother, and she might be out in 12 years. That's the criminal justice system, Detective Morrison says quietly. I know it's not satisfying, but 12 years is still substantial. And Mr. Caldwell, she'll be a convicted felon. Her Instagram career is over. Her reputation is destroyed. Everything she worked for, everyone who believed her performance, all of that is gone. She'll leave prison in her 40s with a record that will follow her forever. It's not enough, Julian says. It's not nearly enough for what she did to us. No, I agree. But it's what we have. And Julian, we're alive. We're together. We caught her before she could finish what she planned. That has to count for something. He nods slowly, not really convinced, but accepting the reality. When can we leave? I don't want to be here anymore. Soon, Patricia says. Detective Morrison needs a few more signatures, some final documentation. Then you can both go home. Not to my apartment, Julian says quickly. I can't go back there, not where she lived, not where she... You'll stay with me, I tell him, as long as you need. We'll figure everything else out tomorrow. As we're preparing to leave, Detective Morrison stops me. Mrs. Caldwell, I need to tell you something. We found plans in Webb's warehouse for other potential targets. Wealthy widows, successful single women, people Sienna had identified as possibilities. You weren't her first plan, just the one that got the furthest. If we hadn't stopped her, she would have moved on to someone else. The thought chills me. How many other families could have been destroyed? How many other sons manipulated? How many other mothers targeted? Will you contact those people? Warn them. We're in the process. But Mrs. Caldwell, you saved lives by trusting your instincts and acting on them. Gregory Hartman saved your life by forgetting to disconnect that camera. Rachel Morgan saved you by breaking her family loyalty to do the right thing. This case came together because people made difficult choices and paid attention to warning signs. That's worth remembering. I nod, too exhausted to respond. Julian takes my arm, and we walk out of the precinct together into the cold November night. The city continues around us. Traffic, people, lights. Normal life proceeding while ours has been fundamentally altered. What do we do now? Julian asks. We go home, we rest. Tomorrow we start rebuilding. How do I trust anyone again after this? Carefully, slowly, with help. But Julian, you will. You'll heal. We both will. He doesn't look convinced, but he doesn't argue. We get in the car and drive toward my apartment, the place Sienna violated, the place that was supposed to be my fresh start. But it's also the place where her plan unraveled, where evidence of her crimes was captured. In a strange way, that apartment saved us. As we pull into the garage, Julian says quietly, "I really loved her, Mom. Or I loved who I thought she was. Does that make me pathetic?" No, sweetheart, it makes you human. And it means that when you do find real love someday, you'll appreciate it that much more, because you'll know the difference. We go upstairs together, and I realize that for the first time in 8 days, I'm not afraid in my own home. The arraignment happens on a gray Friday morning. Patricia advised us not to attend, but Julian insists. He needs to see Sienna one more time, he says. Not to speak to her, just to see her without the performance, without the mask she wore for 3 years. We sit in the back of the courtroom. Sienna is led in wearing an orange jumpsuit, her hair pulled back without the usual careful styling, her face bare of makeup. She looks smaller somehow, diminished. Her eyes scan the courtroom and land on Julian. For a moment, something flickers across her face. Calculation, maybe hope. She starts to smile, that warm expression I've seen 1,000 times. Julian turns away, looks straight ahead, doesn't acknowledge her existence. The smile dies. What replaces it is chilling, pure hatred. The real Sienna, finally visible. She stares at us with such venom that the court officer steps closer to her. Then the judge enters and the proceeding begins. The charges are read: conspiracy to commit murder, attempted murder, identity theft across multiple counts, computer tampering, fraud, forgery. The list goes on for several minutes. Sienna's attorney enters a plea of not guilty, though Patricia has already told us the plea deal negotiations are ongoing. Bail is denied. Sienna will remain at Rikers until trial or until a plea agreement is reached. As she's led out, she turns back one more time, looks directly at me, mouths something I can't quite make out, but the intent is clear. Even now, even caught, she radiates malice. "Let's go," Julian says quietly. We leave the courtroom and don't look back. The next weeks blur together in a haze of legal proceedings, financial cleanup, and emotional processing. Julian moves into my guest room temporarily. His apartment, the one I helped him buy, where he built a life with Sienna, is too full of ghosts. We hire a service to pack up Sienna's belongings and put them in storage. Julian can't bring himself to touch her things. Patricia works with forensic accountants to untangle the financial mess. The fraudulent business accounts are closed. The forged loans are being contested. Julian's credit is destroyed, but we're building documentation to prove identity theft. It's a slow process, but progress happens incrementally. Rachel Morgan visits us one afternoon. She and Julian talk for hours while I make myself scarce, giving them privacy. When Rachel leaves, Julian seems lighter somehow. "She told me stories about Sienna growing up," he says. "It helps, knowing this wasn't about me, that she's been this person for a long time, that I couldn't have fixed or changed her." Therapy begins for both of us. Julian sees someone specializing in trauma from intimate partner fraud. I see someone who works with victims of targeted violence. We attend some sessions together, learning how to rebuild trust between us, how to communicate without the weight of guilt and blame. "You were protecting me," Julian says during one session, "when you didn't tell me immediately about the evidence. I was angry about that, but I understand now. You were trying to keep me safe." "And you were protecting me," I respond, "by loving Sienna, by wanting me to accept her. You thought you were bringing happiness back into my life after losing your father. We were both trying to take care of each other. We just didn't see the threat." The therapist helps us understand that this is what predators like Sienna exploit: love, trust, the natural human desire to believe the best about people we care about. "You weren't naive," she tells us. "You were normal. Sienna was the aberration, not you." 6 weeks after the arrest, Patricia calls with news. Sienna took the plea deal, 15 years with possibility of parole after 12. She provided extensive testimony about Marcus Webb's operations, including information about 3 other women he was targeting. Webb is facing life without parole. He had prior convictions that enhanced his sentencing. "What about the charges related to me?" I ask. She pled guilty to attempted murder, conspiracy to commit murder, identity theft, and fraud. She'll serve her sentences consecutively. The judge made it clear that this was an extraordinarily serious case involving extensive premeditation. Sienna won't be eligible for early release. Did she say anything? Show any remorse? Patricia pauses. She gave a statement during the plea hearing, said she was sorry for the pain she caused, but Vivian, it was performative. Even the judge saw through it. She's sorry she got caught, not sorry for what she did. Julian takes the news quietly. We're sitting in my living room when Patricia calls, and after I hang up he says, 15 years. She'll be 44 when she gets out. She'll still have a life after prison. Yes, I agree, but it won't be the life she planned. No wealth, no status, no Instagram following. She'll be a middle-aged woman with a felony record and no career prospects. Everything she schemed for is gone. Is that enough? It has to be. Because the alternative, dwelling on what she deserves versus what she got, that only hurts us. She doesn't get any more of our time or energy. The divorce is finalized 8 weeks after the arrest. Julian's annulment petition is granted based on fraudulent inducement. Legally, it's as if the marriage never existed. Emotionally, of course, it's more complicated. Julian is working through that in therapy. We find evidence that Sienna had been planning to leave him anyway, once she'd secured access to my estate. Love letters to Marcus Webb recovered from her laptop, discussing their future together once the business transaction was complete. Julian reads them once, then asks me to delete them from his consciousness. "I don't need to know the details," he says. "I just need to move forward." The supplements that would have killed me are entered into evidence. The toxicology reports show exactly how they would have interacted with my cardiac medication, creating the fatal event Sienna planned. I think about how close I came, how if Gregory hadn't forgotten that camera, I'd likely be dead by now. Julian would be a grieving son, manipulated into liquidating assets, signing papers, making decisions that would have enriched his wife and her criminal partner. "Do you ever think about what would have happened?" Julian asks one evening. We're having dinner in my apartment, a routine we've established. "If Mr. Hartman had remembered to disconnect that camera? If you'd taken those vitamins?" "Every day," I admit. "I think about how you would have blamed yourself, how Sienna would have comforted you while stealing everything, how she would have played the devoted widow." "Don't call her that," Julian interrupts. "She was never devoted to anything except herself." 4 months after the arrest, Julian decides he's ready to move back to his apartment. We hire decorators to completely renovate it. New furniture, new paint, new everything. Erasing Sienna's presence from the space. It's expensive and maybe excessive, but Julian needs it. He needs to reclaim that space, make it his own. "Are you going to be okay?" I ask when we're moving his things back in. Eventually, he says. I have good days and bad days. The bad days are getting fewer. I'm learning to trust myself again, to trust my judgment. Good, because your judgment is sound. It was just temporarily hijacked by someone exceptionally skilled at manipulation. He hugs me then, this son I almost lost, this man who was targeted because of his capacity for love and trust. Thank you for not giving up, he says, for trusting your instincts even when I didn't believe you. You saved both our lives. We saved each other, I correct. That's what family does. 6 months after everything began, I'm finally starting to feel settled in my apartment. The space that was supposed to be my fresh start after losing Thomas has become that, though not in the way I imagined. Julian visits twice a week for dinner. We've established new traditions, new ways of being family without Thomas, without the shadow of Sienna's deception hanging over us. Gregory Hartman becomes an unexpected friend. We meet monthly for coffee, this man whose forgetfulness saved my life. I've never been so grateful for my own absent-mindedness, he jokes, though we both know there's nothing funny about what almost happened. Rachel Morgan keeps in touch. She's finishing her graduate degree at Yale, building a life separate from her sister's crimes. She apologizes periodically for not warning us sooner, though I tell her she's not responsible for Sienna's choices. You did warn us, I remind her. When it mattered most, you chose to do the right thing, even though it meant betraying family. That took courage. My heart condition is stable. I'm on medication, I see my cardiologist regularly, and I'm careful about stress management. The threat of sudden death that Sienna tried to exploit is now just a medical condition I manage, not a weapon someone can use against me. Julian starts dating again about 7 months after the divorce. He's cautious, almost paranoid about new people. He runs background checks, asks me to meet anyone serious within the first few weeks, triple checks everything. It's probably excessive, but it's his process. He needs to rebuild trust slowly, and I support that. I'll probably be suspicious of everyone forever, he admits one evening. Maybe not forever, but for a while, yes, and that's okay. Healthy skepticism isn't a bad thing. You just have to find balance between protecting yourself and remaining open to genuine connection. A year after Sienna's arrest, Detective Morrison contacts us with final news. Marcus Webb was sentenced to life without parole. 2 other women he and Sienna had been planning to target have been notified and are taking protective measures. The investigation uncovered evidence of at least 3 prior schemes Webb had run successfully, though victims never reported them due to embarrassment or manipulation. Your case broke open a larger operation, Detective Morrison tells us. Your willingness to come forward, to pursue charges, to testify, it's helping other people. That matters. I think about all those other potential victims, other families that might have been destroyed, other sons who might have been manipulated. We prevented that, Gregory and Rachel and Julian and I. We stopped something terrible by paying attention to warning signs and trusting instincts. Today, I'm sitting in my apartment watching the sun set over Manhattan. Julian is on his way over for dinner. We're cooking together tonight, trying a new recipe, building new memories. The camera Gregory forgot to disconnect has been removed, but I've installed my own security system. Not from paranoia, but from reasonable caution. My phone buzzes with a text from Julian. Bringing wine, the good stuff. We're celebrating. Celebrating what? I text back. Being alive, being together, surviving. Does there need to be more reason than that? No, I think. There doesn't. Sienna Morgan tried to destroy my family for money. She almost succeeded, but she underestimated the power of intuition, the strength of maternal instinct, the resilience of love between a mother and son. She saw us as marks, as opportunities, as obstacles to wealth. She was wrong. We're survivors. We're stronger for what we endured. And we have something she'll never understand. Genuine connection, real love, the kind that doesn't require performance or calculation. The doorbell rings. Julian, arriving with wine and stories about his day. We'll cook dinner together, talk about everything and nothing, continue the work of healing. Tomorrow I have coffee with Gregory. Next week, Rachel is visiting from Yale. My life continues, richer for nearly having lost it, deeper for understanding how precious these simple moments truly are. I open the door to my son, and we step into our future together.